Hello, everybody, and welcome to Elevate Impact Conversations, a space where we create the opportunity for conversation on very important topics from those that are working directly on the front lines and hands-on all the time with these issues. Today, I am so honored to be joined by Stephanie Harpe, who is an international advocate and somebody who has already shared so much with me and been such a great resource and educator. And I'm so grateful, Stephanie. Thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure.
Why don't we start by learning a little bit about you and what you do, because you are an incredible woman up to a lot of things.
I wear many hats. Yes, indeed, I do. First off, I'm a wife and I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. I am a cook, so that's one of my most joys. And also, I'm a award-nominated singer-songwriter. I open up for the biggest names in music with my band, the Stephanie Harpe Experience. And right now we're playing the biggest concert in Alberta for the Together Again concert. So
Yes.
we'll be opening up for Biff Naked and the Trues and 5440 coming up here August 8th, just so you know. And then so we are going to be doing all of that. And then also I'm an actress for movies and television. And I'm also an ex-casting agent for local to Hollywood film, as I put that on the back burner because of what my main job is. And today that is, I am an international advocate and lived experience person from missing or murdered and exploited Indigenous peoples of Canada. So that we include everyone. And that includes the men and boys. We don't leave them out of anything. They need the healing and the help as well. So that's what I do. I am, my dad is a Métis man from the Lac-La-Biche area, Cree and French. And then on my mother's side, Dene and Cree from Fort McKay First Nations is my nation. And, so I'm a lived experience person who has been through every single horrific statistic as an Indigenous person here in Canada. And I do a lot of speaking all over the country, all over the world. And I do work with United Nations as well. And I'm mostly on the ground with a lot of the most oppressed and exploited population in this country, which is Indigenous and people of color. So, but I do spend a lot of time educating all Canadians on the truth and awareness, prevention, and action. That's me. That's my job.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I really love what you just said about educating people with the truth. And I just want to acknowledge you and the work that you're doing, and acknowledge also the learnings that I know, I'll speak for myself, that I need to continue doing. And I just appreciate your willingness to educate and share with me in such a way that leads to so much growth for myself. So thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you do. I would really like to dive into what some of those factors and reasons are that result in the Indigenous population being so disproportionately affected by crimes such as human trafficking and the exploitation that the community sees. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Well, because Indigenous people are not valued in this country. We don't have the same human rights. We don't have clean drinking water. We don't have the same education. We don't have the same healthcare in our communities. We're really vacant and left behind. We're targeted. We're invisible, and we're still fighting for our human rights today. Okay, so the history of it is genocide. We've been killed, murdered, starved, experimented on, tortured, outlawed, our ceremonies outlawed, all of this. And that's the truth, and that's the history. There used to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Indigenous people in Canada. Now we make up only the 5%. That was strategic genocide. That was strategic genocide on the history of Canada and the history of the RCMP and Indian Affairs and now the system that we go through every day. So that all that everyone thinks that all that genocide, repression, and all that downright murder happened long ago. It still happens today. Okay, it's just embedded and weaved into modern ways. So it's different for us as an Indigenous person. So for instance, the reason why this happens because the legal system, we do not say justice system for Indigenous person because we don't know what justice is. We never get that. We don't even know what that is. That's like a mystical unicorn that we will never see. And I'm hoping one day we will see that. But at this point, we are treated differently. We experience a lot of racism. We experience a lot of strategic oppression, and that's all been there since the beginning of once we were all murdered and they started taking the land and they killed the buffalo to purposely starve us. They got Hudson's Bay to give us smallpox blankets, to really kill us off even further. And people think that this is a historical thing. Well, it's not. And so that trauma in residential school in the 60s scoop, right now we are in the millennial scoop. People think that's over with. That's not over with. And so right now living all those historical oppression and genocide is just made into these structures today. Okay. And so when for example, Joey English in south of Calgary, Stephanie English is a good friend and sister of mine that I love dearly, and she's been through a lot with her family. Her daughter was chopped. Her daughter's boyfriend chopped her daughter's body up into pieces in garbage bags and put them in different garbages in Calgary alleyways. Her body parts are still at the dump and at the landfill, and the guy got 18 months. So when the legal system and the media send that out to Canada, what does that tell them? Okay, you can murder us, you can chop us into bags, and you'll do 18 months. So in the overpopulated world, mental health is an issue. Okay, so right now, mental health is a huge issue, huge issue. Okay, so with all these Canadians who are sociopaths and psychotics and killers and molesters and traffickers and all these people that want to intentionally hurt, kill, and control and sexualize and abuse, know that they can get away with it when it comes to us, because the system treats us differently, and that is echoed within the justice system, that is echoed within the accountability of the media. Okay, so they sent that message out to all of Canada for long time here, long time, with examples of Fulton Bouchy, with examples of Tina Fontaine, with examples of these people who are never ever going to be accountable, ever going to be accountable. And as long as Canadians allow them to do this to the population that they just strategically traumatized, that trauma bleeds into the everyday of an Indigenous person. Okay, this is intergenerational trauma that is passed on. So once you know that truth and that you understand that happens to us today, now you know the truth. What are you going to do about it? Upon your own moral compass, will you be part of the solution or part of the problem? And that makes every Canadian accountable. So that's why that happens to Indigenous people. We are not valued. We are highly targeted because of how Canada has treated us and will continue to treat us unless we do something together.
Yes. Thank you for sharing all of that, Stephanie. And it definitely leaves me at a loss for words, but more than that, and I hope that folks that are watching, and like you indicated in hearing that, for me, I'm not okay sitting and knowing that and not acting. And I know that we are long past a point of, where words are not enough.
Mm-hmm.
They have never been enough, and they're certainly not enough now. And so action is what is needed. I know that. So what actions, what are the things that we can do to be allies for you to show up and help make a difference and make change that is so long overdue?
So all Canadians have to demand justice and human rights for all Canadians, especially the most oppressed and the ones that went through the genocide. Okay.
Yes.
And so that's really important, Indigenous people and people of color. Now, BIPOC is not right. You're forgetting the A. The Asian community go through a lot as well. It is wrong to leave them out. So you got that one first off wrong. So the A needs to be added. You can't leave out a community, a whole community that goes through these things as well, especially with COVID, when they're getting the worst of it of COVID, all that racism, all the Asian community in the United States. Well, that's bleeding. All that hate bleeds into this country as well. Okay, it dusted up a lot of the racism we've been seeing a lot here lately, as well, right? So, identity. When you see that racism, do something about it. Give them some truth, But on the other hand, these are also people who cannot be rationalized with, who have a mental health issue, who are not educated, and who just have a heart full of hate, right? So there's some people you can reach and some people you can't, and I've learned that over the years. But usually I win them over, because in the end, we're all Canadians, but we're seeing a lot of racism dust up. We're seeing a lot of things. But since the 215 residential school children, that were just their bodies were discovered, I think it's at 600 now. Okay, so it's counting and counting and counting. You're going to find there's going to be hundreds of thousands, just like they did to us in the very beginning of the genocide when we were first here. As soon as we taught the settlers to survive, that's when they started to kill us. And all Indigenous people all over the world, what do they die for? They die because people, other parties and governments and all, they want the power of land and they want the power of water. You ask any oppressed Indigenous person who is the poorest in their country, they will tell you all of that. That, they get all these empty promises, they get all this stuff. So we need to hold the governments accountable and demand policy and procedure to be changed for the people and to give human rights to the oppressed, all oppressed Canadians. This is ridiculous. It's 2021, and here in Indigenous people are still fighting for human rights. Okay. And and not all Canadians are taught in school the truth. I had to grow up to be an adult to find out the truth myself. And then I understood, oh, that's what happened to my mother. That's what happened to my grandmother and all that come before me. So no wonder that happened to me. I totally understand what happened to me now, but they don't want that. They don't want us healed because they don't want us taking our land back. They don't want us taking our water back. They don't want us, getting strong and entitled into what Indigenous people are truly, truly connected to. Okay. Now, if you watch the movie Avatar, that is the closest depiction of what Indigenous people are. And James Cameron came to our community in Fort Mackay and Fort Chip. So he came up there too before he made Avatar. And so that's the closest depiction. And so I need you to spread that around to people. Say, hey, if you don't know the truth, just watch Avatar. That's what the Indigenous people are going through right now. So the next part too is the shape of water. I believe it has to do with water. So I'm telling you, people, like he understood because James Cameron listened to us. So that kind of thing. Educate the ignorance. Educate the ignorance. Try to reach the hate. Okay, and give them that truth of what and stick up for us when we're not there. And all of that. Please, we really appreciate it. Write letters. Do vehicle convoys, do marches, demand justice, as we know that they are not being accountable and they never have been. Okay, and what the government has done to the living of an Albertan, they've been doing this to us for a long time. Okay, what do you think they're going to do to you eventually? Okay, so if you allow this to happen, the government thinks, oh, all Canadians are good with what we're doing to Indigenous people, so we can start doing it to them, right? So it's just, you got to be careful. You need truth, you need education, And you need to talk to the Indigenous people with lived experience like me to get that truth. You ain't going to find it in colonial school systems. You ain't going to find it as a social worker, okay? You can have the best intent to help, but the government and policies will always put a wall there. Doesn't matter how good of a cop you are, there's a wall there. Doesn't matter how good of a social worker you are to save children, there's a wall there. And everyone hits that wall. So we have to demand that this wall get taken down and policies and procedures are getting rid of that have nothing to do but oppress peoples. Okay, so now you know the truth, and now you have to do also have people like me to come out to do awareness,
Yes.
prevention, and action. This is what it's all about. We're sick and tired of talking. Only when these bodies, 215 bodies were found, did Canada start believing us. And now they're starting to believe. Now they're starting to believe. The way Canadians responded to my CBC article on my residential school experience last year compared to this year, total night and day. I had people calling me, apologizing. I lost friends, family, public, over telling them the truth of my residential school experience here in Edmonton. So don't forget that. Don't forget it. They strategically murdered, and it was genocide, and they continue with genocide, oppression, and systematic racism. So if you allow that, you're accountable as well as a Canadian. So once you know better, you do better. And nothing about Indigenous people without us. Nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. And you raise such a great point, and I would love to know. So nothing about us without us. That I completely get that. At what point, because there's the whole, topic of emotional labor, and I know that I need to do the work, that it's my responsibility to do the work. So how do I know when I'm asking too much, or like, what does that
How do you
look like?
start? Yeah, how do you start? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is how you start, my dear. This is how you start. So when you're asking an Indigenous person any kind of thing, you give them tobacco first. You always give them tobacco. Always bring tobacco. Mail them tobacco or sage is really great. We really truly appreciate that. When I go and speak, I always get tobacco, sage, and a blanket. Right? So those are the three gifts that are commonly given. You know how many blankets I have from Canada? I got blankets from across the country from the people.
Okay.
And so those are very common items to gift. And then you sit down and you say, I need to know truth. I come here with an open heart and an open mind to learn. Please give me that truth, because I want to be an ally and I would love to help, and not to act like an ignorant historical settlers do. So I'd like to engage. Let's do this, right? So there's a lot of people that you just need to track down. You just need to be careful, make sure that you kind of ask around, do your research on the person first to make sure that they're healthy. We have a lot of unhealthy people in wellness, and that goes everywhere. That goes for everyone all over the place. Some places say, oh, and then you find out, oh no. So it's really good to do your research and finding the healthy people who have the truth of that lived experience, and have that people's reputation. So you go to the people, to find that out, right? And that's how people keep researching online to find people like me, right?
Yes.
So with all of that, that's really important. And there are places like there's an elder here in Edmonton. Her name is Elder Elsie Paul, and she works at the Kokomse Watsoon Society of Edmonton. So that's a really good healthy resource. Is her. She's in high demand elder. She's just wonderful. She exudes love. She has this beautiful energy. So beautiful, so sweet. And so it's good to have that good energy from good people as well, because that's really important. You have to be careful. The right hearted people with the good energy need to be doing this work, The other people who are just so in their trauma or such in their pain that they just can't do that. It takes special people to do this work. And then also remember that people like us who do this work, it's not a 9 to 5 job. This is a 24/7 job, right? And my family, they understand that. So I'm very lucky in that way that I have a very supportive family that has let me go this far to impact the whole world. And so I'm just honored to do that kind of work. But yeah, myself, I have a partner named Carrie Thomason, who's an expert as well. So Carrie Thomason is really, really amazing. So she's another incredible Canadian resource of truth. So I highly recommend Carrie Thomason as well.
Yes, I had the honor of being able to sit down with Carrie a couple of years ago now and have a conversation. And I yes, it was another very eye-opening hour of truth that I'm so grateful for. And so thank you for bringing her up, and thank you for sharing with us. I know that you are such a busy human, and I appreciate you being here and educating and sharing truth with us. And um, I am here. I am here to do the work, and I am here to be an ally. And I will continue to be in touch and, doing what I can and following the guidance of people such as yourself, so that I can ensure that I show up in the ways that are actually helpful to the Indigenous people of Canada. So thank you so much for your time, Stephanie, and for all of the work that you do.
There are resources. I was on a national human trafficking call yesterday, and there was a whole presentation made there that all their Indigenous sectors were vacant, 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 empty, 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 empty. And they're saying, but the highest rate is Indigenous peoples in this country of human trafficking. Is like, yeah, so like I would give you because I know you're going to ask me about resources. It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I don't know where the great resources are because they're still not being accountable to the highest rate of what their works are in. And I was on a national call with the biggest human trafficking people who serve in this country and member of parliament, and I was just in shock. So there's a national human trafficking hotline, and there's a national center for missing and exploited children. But again, I don't know if they're engaging with Indigenous people and people of color.
And so one last question then on that note, Stephanie. So, with all of these vacancies, in these areas that are related to Indigenous population, should those roles be filled by Indigenous people, like going back to the nothing about us without us,
Yeah,
or who
definitely.
steps into those roles?
Definitely. They need people like me and Carrie Thomason
Yeah.
to get that work done right. I
Yes.
mean,
Okay.
we Carrie Thomason and I are not waiting for no action plan from anybody. We are the action plan. We are doing the work. We are on the ground with the people, and we always have been. So they need people like ourselves to make sure it's done right, so that we include, up here, and this comes right there together in the middle, and that's how the only way it's going to work, and the only way it's going to work. Okay, but here's the thing. This is the problem. Okay, so Canada has their wheels turning and their cogs moving, and money's being made. Okay, and in this day and age, there is profit in suffering in every country. And if you think Canada isn't the same, I'm sorry, you're sadly mistaken. So here in Edmonton, for the rub and tug parlors, Edmonton takes a tax from that, and they do nothing to put that back into getting the women and children out. Joyce Smith Foundation said on the call the other day that the youngest child to be taken out of a rub and tug place and massage parlors is 13 years old Indigenous girl was taken out recently. So, and the youngest child to be trafficked here in Alberta is 7 years old by her own father. So when we have domestic trafficking and domestic in the home, and the own parents are doing this, this is a severe problem. People
Yeah.
think this, a lot of this stuff is in the movies. You have to understand human trafficking is everywhere right now. And child sexual abuse went up 30%, 35% since COVID. Okay. So we're there's such slack in vacancies that everyone is not doing their job. It's really, really sad. So these national centers can talk all they want, but they're really not doing the work with the people on the ground. And you now know that the human trafficking is not at the forefront of anywhere, no media, no nothing. And when these child sexual exploitation rings or these human trafficking rings are busted, there's usually police involved that were purchasing, or police involved in the ring. There's a child trafficking ring that was busted on the other side of the country. Okay. Police were involved in trafficking. And then when you bust these other places and these parlors and stuff, there's government officials, there's lawyers, there's judges, there's all these people in all these places that are supposed to serve and protect.
Yeah.
And are supposed to do justice and are supposed to do human rights. They're supposed to do, and they're part of it, right? We have a lot of Indigenous people. A lot of Indigenous people get raped by RCMP. They get raped by police. Okay. And Enbridge workers were just recently charged with trafficking on one of the man camps.
Wow.
So that's all realistic things that do happen. So I can't really give you the right resource. It's just the people on the ground that are with the people like myself and those lived experience people that are moving forward and getting it done. Those are the people that are the resource.
Okay. That is very good to know. And thank you for all of that information. If people want to follow the work that you do you have an online presence, Stephanie? What does that look like? Is there something that you want to share so people can be following you and, picking up the truth as you are educating folks?
Yes. Well, you can, everyone Googles me, they find me. I'm this kind of like, I didn't know I was a resource. So, but I don't have managed a lot of pages. I'm going to get a website done here soon, because it's getting overwhelming. So I'm on Instagram,
Okay.
Harpe Stephanie. So it's just my name backwards.
Okay.
And I'm also on Facebook, Stephanie Harpe. And yeah, so I'm on there as well. So website coming soon. Just everyone knows how to find me. And my email is Steph, STEPH _Harpe, HARPE @yahoo.ca. And just remember, we all have a raging fire within us. Just share your warmth and watch everything beautiful in the world thrive. And make sure you watch my TED Talk on YouTube, Indigenous Suffering and Survival to Success.
Thank you again for your time, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Masicho.